After playing a lot more repos since my last video, I mean, I have 200 hours now, and I think in the last one I had maybe under 100. Essentially, I've come to another possible story that may be taking place in REPO. Now, in my last video, I came to the conclusion that REPO was a fully automated AI company that rose to power and eventually led to humanity's extinction, and thus, we are repossessing items from dead people. If you want to see that theory in full, you can click the card in the top right, but let's focus on this new theory for now. With more evidence than you might realize, I think time travel is actually taking place in this game somehow. To start off, we know of a few different dates. One is the Class of '87 picture in the Swiftbroom Academy map. The second is the calendar in McGennick Station saying that it is April 15th, 2097. I previously thought that this was a difference of 10 years, but what if it's a difference of 100 years? Or even more? Let's take a deeper look at McGennick Station and the world we have access to. If McGennick Station takes place in 2097, what can we find that helps verify that besides the calendar? Sure, there are computers and technology and sciencey stuff around, but if you actually look at all of it, it's very outdated. Take the large computer, for example. Doesn't it look like some of the earliest computers? Or what about the PCs we can find, or the laptops? Sure, these look more modern, but certainly not like any PC or laptop you would expect to find 70 plus years in the future. The decor is also not very futuristic. It's possible that the REPO war lasted for a lot longer than I previously thought, and so tech was not able to advance as well. Or it could just be that all of the best technology has already been repossessed by the REPO bots. But let's take another look at some of the items in McGennick Station and find out what we can discover about them. The camera item doesn't look that special. It doesn't look at all like a camera you'd expect to see in 2097. Nor does the VHS, which also is just a weird thing that can be found here at all because it's really old. This is something you don't see hardly anymore. And it's definitely strange to see one of these instead of like some CDs or something else like that because it's supposed to be 2097. The uranium Petri dish is also strange because why would they use something that could harm them by using regularly? And these can be found out in the open. So they're not in any kind of protected place. Maybe you could argue that there's some science that could happen with a radioactive Petri dish, but overall, the most advanced looking item here is the cryopod, which I hate to break it to you, that stuff has been around for many, many years. However, just in general, everything else just kind of looks like it could have come from the present or even 50 years ago. I mentioned the decor earlier, but what I really mean specifically is that some of the same furniture from the Headman Manor map can also be found here in McGennick Station. That's weird considering how old that furniture appears. Now, that doesn't mean time travel is at play, but it is kind of out of place, right? Like, isn't it out of place? It only appears in one room, and it's almost jarring when you see it for the first time. All these sci-fi things like test tubes and computers, and suddenly the old-looking wardrobe from the Headman Manor is there? I'm pretty sure some of the tables and stuff can transfer over from both maps too, but the wardrobe specifically is weird to me. And let's talk about the Headman Manor for a second, actually, because everything about it also looks like it existed 50 or more years ago. There are uranium cups and plates everywhere, which is wild if you really think about it. Uranium glassware, according to Wikipedia, was most popular in the 1880s to the 1920s. Now, while it isn't too difficult to find uranium glassware today, I mean, you could probably go to any random thrift store and find some. It's not in every house and business and facility, which is why it's so strange to see it, because McGennick Station takes place in 2097. Even if these two locations don't exist at the same time, they should surely be within a reasonable time apart from each other. So why do they exist? Why are these uranium cups and plates and stuff like that in this map? By that year, by 2097, it should have become even rarer, shouldn't it? Even if it wasn't, why would a research lab have these things like these uranium glassware and stuff like that just hanging out in their place, as if they were being used regularly? Headman Manor even has these sitting in sinks, which implies that they were being used, which any modern person knows that these are not safe to eat off. Then there's the cymbal clanging monkey, which was created in the 1930s, and while it is still in production, the date 1930 feels like it stands out. Because remember, the uranium glassware's biggest boom in popularity ended in the 1920s. So it's not too far off from the same time era, which feels notable. Then there are the goblets and pocket watches, vases, bottles of champagne, all that kind of stuff, which all would easily fit in that time frame. The wind-up frog is another notable one because according to Wikipedia, again, they share a similar popularity time frame as the uranium glassware. The first wind-up toys were created during the late 1880s and died off somewhere around the 1960s due to inexpensive alkaline batteries. Isn't it strange that so many of these valuables fit within that same time frame? What if the Swiftbroom class of 87 was actually 1887? That would put it in the perfect sweet spot to make it make much more sense for those two locations to be in the same year. But McGinnis Station seems to imply that it's 2097, which is the outlier here. It's the only map that seems to take place a vast distance in the future. But then, why is the same furniture there in 2097? This is where the time travel comes into play, and I think it still works with my previous war theory. McGinnis Station created or discovered some form of time travel. They would have wanted to focus a lot on this in order to stop the war and save humanity. I think the furniture and maybe the uranium petri dish appeared here during tests of the time machine. Maybe they weren't able to send people back in time yet, or something like that, and was only successful in getting random objects from different points in time to appear. The only problem would be why their technology seems so outdated. But it really could be that tech was hard to get access to since R.e.p.o. might have already taken it from previous repossessions. And since there was a time machine here, R.e.p.o. was able to take that too. And so, with time travel, R.e.p.o. could now access any point in time to take items from. That's why Headman Manor is full of old tech like black and white TVs, which fit into the 1920s to 1940s eras, or the gramophone, which is also from the 1920s, or the cathedral radio, which was popular in the 1930s, which also fits into that time period. It's almost like the developers did this on purpose. There are way too many items in the game that fit into this weird 1880s to around 1930-ish era to be a coincidence. Now, does that mean time travel is part of the story? That is debatable, but there is something else to consider. In Headman Manor, there is a gravestone that has the Headman enemy on it, implying that it's buried there, that it's dead. During my R.e.p.o. war theory, I just ignored this existed at all because the head can't actually be dead since we face it all the time, and it kind of works with the idea that the head was immortal. Like, if it died, it would come back to life. But if time travel is part of the story, this gravestone suddenly makes more sense because the head did die. Since we are traveling through time, what is stopping the Headman or the other monsters? It's possible that the head actually did die in 1930, but before that, in 1920, it traveled to 1931, meaning it could be alive to visit its own grave. The magazine that we see that reads "Head Dead," yes, maybe? Something terrible happened. Perhaps the maybe refers to the fact that it is dead, but it's not at the same time since it traveled through time, and that would be the something terrible that happened. And now, with the addition of the new museum map, there are adverts for some kind of moose fighting thing that takes place on 01/04/30. January 4th, 2030? Or 1930? Or it makes sense that it would be 2030, but either way, this causes all kinds of problems because McGinnis Station has a calendar from 2097, and we visit it as well. If the museum was really from 1930, I'm sure it would be in much worse shape. But honestly, even at 67 years later, that 2030 would imply it's in pretty good shape. How is that possible unless we've somehow been transported to this time? Unless it really has been vacant for 67 years. As you can see, there is more evidence for some strange time shenanigans than you might have thought before this video. The only thing that I could think of to make all of the time inconsistencies make more sense is that each level is a different time period, and we are meant to experience them in a linear order. Starting with Headman Manor, the early days of R.e.p.o., when they were more centered on homes. The museum next in 2030, where tensions between R.e.p.o. and humanity is at its peak, evidenced by the art of the semi-bots being depicted as more evil and also the human group art everywhere. Swiftbroom Academy next in 2087, where the war has been happening for many years now. The Academy conducted magical experiments hoping to find a way to stop R.e.p.o., resulting in some students or teachers becoming some of the monsters that you face in the game. Finally, at McGinnis Station in 2097, the end of the war. Humanity tried their best to create weapons, experiments, anything at all that could help stop R.e.p.o. But unfortunately, they failed. R.e.p.o. came, killed the people there since they got in the way of the items they were going to repossess, and humanity lost its last hope, eventually either going extinct or into hiding. This feels more likely to me than time travel, but when exploring the outside of the different shop maps, I noticed how many are similar. Almost as if the shop is in the same exact spot every time, but in different time periods. One is a lush forest, another in a dead forest, and another in a wasteland. What if all three are the same, starting with the lush forest, being wiped out by someone or something, and eventually the dead trees were there, and those trees that were dead without their leaves and everything like that. Maybe they eventually collapsed and turned to dust, leaving only a wasteland with a suspicious shop in the center. But this is all just theory. I have more I kind of want to say about the museum and everything like that, but since this video has gone on long enough and it isn't related to the time travel part of all of this, I will save it for another future video. That is pretty much all I have for you. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Did r.e.p.o. get possession of some sort of time travel technology, and so they started going back in time to steal things from random homes and stuff like that? Or are we just seeing a linear story that takes place over 60 years? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, please do consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and doing all of those wonderful things like that, because when you do wonderful things like that, not only do you get access to wonderful content such as this, but you also get to become wonderful for yourself, and I think we all want that. So do those wonderful things, and until next time, stay wonderful. That's an outro from the other channel, from the main channel.